So a question I'm frequently asked is, Wasim, how do you handle mixed media animation? You know, what's your workflow look like? This video is going to be a comprehensive guide on everything that I personally do for mixed media animation, from grabbing all the frames, creating contact sheets, printing it out, how I handle transitions, as well as scanning everything back in and turning it into a full animation. For this video, I will be using DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Photoshop, and my printer. Although you are welcome to use alternatives, I will get into why I personally prefer Photoshop in a second. So here I just have some footage from my friend NX2 Photography, shout him, he's the GOAT, and we've just got two of these shots here that go back to back. And I'm thinking, how am I going to turn this into an animation? I'm not going to say exactly what my ideas are because they kind of just come as I work. And there's no specific effect in mixed media, it's kind of just whatever you want to make. But what I will show you is the workflow of actually getting this ready to be animated on. So what we're going to do is we're going to head to the color tab on DaVinci Resolve. And once you're in here, you're going to want this gallery thing in the top left. You want to have that checked on so that you can grab a bunch of stills. And what you do is you just have your mouse over the frame and you just press grab still. Now, a common term you're going to hear in mixed media animation is animating on twos, which is basically where you're animating every other frame. So instead of it being in 24 FPS like it is here, for example, it would instead be in 12 FPS. So you would just want to skip forward 2 frames like I've done there, and then just grab the still again. And then you repeat, grab the still, keep going, and you just do that until you've grabbed all the stills that you need. So now I've got all my stills, we're just going to want to hit Control A to select all of them, and then we're just going to export it. What I recommend is making a folder to put them all in, just so that you're a bit more organized. And also they all already sort alphanumerically, so you don't need to worry about that. And that's all we need to do right now for DaVinci Resolve. We can just close it until we bring all of our frames back in after we've scanned them. Now, one of the main things that we want to make is something called a contact sheet, which looks something like this. You know, it's got every single frame that we want just put on one sheet. And the good thing, and the reason why I prefer Photoshop, is that you can automate it in Photoshop to do it by itself. Like, you just give it the folder and say, hey, this is how many rows I want and how many columns and the spacing between them, and just make me a contact sheet. So I'm just going to show you how to do that really quickly. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to File and then go to Automate, and then it says Contact Sheet 2. I don't know what version this works on. I'm using Adobe Photoshop 2025, so it works on there. I don't know if it works on any of the older ones. So we're just gonna go and grab our folder that we have all of our photos in, and we're going to set the document size to this, because this is the A4 sheet of paper size. So 3508 by 2480. Then when it comes to thumbnails, this is basically where you define how many rows and columns you want. I typically do 4x4 because I like to have 16 on each, or I will have 4x5. For this instance, because we want it to be a bit higher quality, we're going to do it on 4x4. This completely depends on like how much printer ink you have and how high quality you want it to be. Some people prefer the texture of like a grungier look, which honestly I also prefer sometimes. I've used it in a bunch of my own animations. And as for spacing, I like to make sure there's as little spacing as possible between them, so it's just 1 pixel. This is just for when we scan it back in, it's a lot easier to go from frame to frame, as I'll show you in Photoshop. Also, sometimes it has the use file name as caption thing ticked. You just want to disable it every single time. You just want to have it disabled automatically. And then you just press OK. And it will go ahead and do the entire thing for you. So if you can see, it's literally going with each individual frame and it's putting them together. And just like that, we have all of our frames just ready to go. So all we need to do from here is we need to print them. So I have my printer just right over there. It's outside of the frame of the camera, but I'll put up some B-roll of it working, I guess. All we really need to worry about is when we go to printing, we first need to make sure that it actually fits on the paper. So we're going to go down and we're going to click scale to fit media. And if we go to print settings, we just make sure that grayscale is turned off because we'll be printing in color. If you're printing in black and white, then just print in black and white, I guess. Just check grayscale printing. And then just like that, we can just press print. And we're going to do the same for the other frames. All right, and just like that, we got our frames right here. Woohoo! See, they're just right here. We got a whole bunch of them. We got all 4 pages. This page is stuck to the other one. There we go. We got all 4 pages printed, nice and easy. So typically, when it comes to what I personally use, I've got a whole drawer full of art supplies. I've got oil pastels, watercolor. I've got felt tips. I've got markers, pens, pencils, crayons. Got a whole bunch of stuff, really. Alright, so for my video, I think I am mainly gonna go with watercolor, just because I have this really big obsession with doing watercolor on like the skyline whenever I'm making videos, and I just think it looks super cool, so I'm just gonna grab my watercolor now. As you can see, the blue one has been used quite a fair bit more than any of the others. So I got my handy dandy paintbrush here, and I have my cup of water here. I'm just going to swirl my thing around a little bit. And now we're just going to grab some blue. There's a little bit of orange mixed in, but that's okay. We're just going to get it all nice and wet. And now we can go in here. As you can see, we can go in here. I like to turn it around a little bit just so it's easier for me to look at. And then we just paint in the sky. Also, it's totally okay if you make mistakes, or if you just mess up at points, because remember, every single thing here will only be on screen for about 2 frames. Which, if you're in 24 frames per second, that's 1/12 of a second. Nobody is going to notice unless it's like a glaringly obvious difference to all of the other ones. And besides, the imperfection is kind of what makes mixed media animation so cool, in my opinion. But yeah, this is typically the part where you watch a show while working. Just because this isn't something that you need to pay 100% attention to while you're working, you can just, you know, have background tasks going on in the background. I recently worked on a short film, and while I was working on that, I just watched the entire new season of The Amazing World of Gumball, because the film was like 4 minutes long, and bear in mind, what we're doing here, this is for about 10 seconds of footage in total, so it is a very, like, high cost, high reward kind of style of animation. Also, bear in mind, you don't have to do the same techniques or styles as me. There's a whole range of really cool and really talented mixed media animators who do their own varying styles and whatnot, and I think it's just really cool to spend time trying to figure out what your own style is. And also, mixed media animation doesn't always just have to be, you know, drawing on paper or like using paper. One of my biggest inspirations at the moment actually is someone called Noah Green, aka Timberland. In one of his music videos or like visualizers, he literally did animation by like sewing onto like fabric, which I thought was so cool. And there's so many interesting techniques and styles that people bring, because this is really like, there's no rules to this. Like, obviously there's specific rules, like making sure your frame rate is consistent and you're not having like one frame is on screen for like 20 frames and then another frame is on screen for 1 frame. Like, that would be stupid. But in terms of the effects that you can create, it's really like freeing, because you can really just do whatever you want, and chances are it will come out looking pretty good. Like recently, on a music video that I was working on, which eventually got scrapped, I literally grabbed frames that I had like printed out and just threw them into my bathtub. Like, you can literally just do that, apparently, and nobody will care. Alright, so we got page 1 done. As you can see, we got everything nice and drawn out. So now that I'm coming up to the last frame of this shot, I am going to start thinking about, you know, how am I gonna have the next shot transition in? And one of my favorite ways to do this would just to be adding a little bit of like an outline of like the person, like maybe like here a little bit, like the subject's right here. We have like a little black outline of them here, maybe for 2 frames. Or 2 individual frames, so 4 frames in total, and then it cuts back to them. You know, something neat and subtle. It doesn't need to be like a whole like huge thing. You don't need like the camera to spin 720 degrees and like do a backflip for a transition. It can just be like very clean. It's just so it flows a little better than just like a hard cut, because sometimes with mixed media animation, hard cuts feel a little janky, at least to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an oil pastel, which is what I have here. I have the general location of where he is, and so I'm just going to draw out a little figure right there. See? Really nothing at all. And then have the same thing done right here. And then, bam. There we go. That's all I need to do. And then we just grab this one. And then we just do the exact same thing. Bam. And now when we go into animate, I will show you it will look a lot neater and a lot nicer. Okay, so now I have all my frames just ready to go for scanning back in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly scan them back in, and then I'll show you how I turn them into actual animations. Okay, so now we've got all of our sheets right here, ready to go. So I'm just going to drag and drop them in really quickly. Okay, so now that we have all of our frames inside of Photoshop, what we're going to want to do now is first we're going to want to align them so that they're, you know, they're straight. So we're going to grab a ruler and just bring it across, make sure that's straight, maybe up a little bit, and then to the left. And yeah, that looks mostly straight. And we're just going to grab rulers in Photoshop and just put them across. This is the main reason I use Photoshop, is because of what I'm about to do. Okay, so now that we have all our guides, let me just move my webcam here. We're just going to grab the slice tool, which is the crop tool, but just go into the drop down menu and grab it. And we're just going to click this little button here that says slice from guides. And that's going to create a bunch of slices. So like we see here. And what we're going to do is all of the white lines or all of the white spaces that we don't want, we're just going to delete the slice. All right, and now you should have something like this. And if you see, we've got these little slices here that we don't want. We can't really delete them from here, but what we can do is we can go to the slice select tool and just click hide auto slices. And now we've only got the slices that we want. All right, so now that we have all our slices, what we're going to do is we're going to go into File, Export, Save for Web, and we're just going to click Save. We're going to go into our new folder, which is called Practice, and make sure the slices setting is set exclusively to all user slices, because if we have all slices, it will include the slices that we just hid. So we're just going to click Save, and it's just going to save those out. So now if I go to Desktop, and I go to Practice, and I go here, it's got all of my frames right here as I want them. Now, what I like to do, just to make my life easier, because it doesn't put them in like exact numerical form, I'll just go in quickly and change the names real quick. So you can just press tab and then bam, we've got all of our things named. And now that we're in DaVinci Resolve, what we're going to want to do is we're going to head over to the Media tab, go to the 3 dots in the top, make sure frame display mode is set to sequence. So now if we drag and drop it in, it will just come in as a sequence. This is really quick, but that's because it's doing it every single frame. And as you can remember, we were animating on 2s. So we're just going to set this to 50% speed and then drag it out. And then we've got it right here. And it looks quite good. Although there is an issue with some of the cropping. So we're just going to quickly zoom in a little bit, like by such a small amount, and then there we go, bam, we've got it's animated. And we're just going to repeat this for each frame, and then we're going to quickly color correct everything so that it doesn't look quite dull, because some scanners really suck and it makes it a lot less saturated or it ruins the contrast, so we can just raise it to fix it. And the beauty of these templates that you use is that once you've done one, you can do the rest really, really easily. So like I've already got it set up basically. Like I barely need to move this. Like maybe I might need to move it a tiny bit. So we literally just do the exact same thing. We export, save for web, save it, and then we're going to make a new folder, call it like 2 or something. And now those are all here, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to name them. So we're just going to do the exact same thing. Set this to 50% speed, drag it out, and as you can see, it comes out just fine. So we're just gonna do the exact same thing, make sure you're zooming in by the exact same scale on each thing so that the scale doesn't look weird. And then bam, see? And like I said, that transition, it just makes it feel a little cleaner. It's better than just like a hard cut. And just like that, we have our animation here. It's just completely fine, just like how we wanted it. So one thing that we're going to want is we're going to want to raise the contrast, because if we look at the other layer looked a lot like deeper in terms of like the color. This is quite like grayscale kind of. So what we're going to want to do is we're just going to grab everything, turn it into a compound clip, and then when we go over to the color tab, it's just got one compound clip, and we're going to go to our curves, and we're just going to drop this part down a little bit and then raise this up ever so slightly just so that the whites are a bit like richer. And there we go. That's literally all we need to do. And just like that, we've made an entire mixed media animation. And normally a lot of people would go through the painstaking process of, you know, grabbing their frame from their documents folder, and then they'll like rotate it inside of here, and then they'll zoom it in, and then they'll like grab the transform tool and go frame by frame, like skipping and then going to the next frame. We've skipped all of that. We don't have to do any of that because Photoshop has just given us the ability to do this. And what's best is that because this is a very common resolution that we work with, you know, 1440 by 1080 is a very common resolution, we can just go ahead and save this, and we can call it 1440 by 1080 mixed media slice template. And now if we ever need another slice template for this, we can literally just open this up and use it again. The slices are already done for us. It takes no time at all. This is like easily what I've found to be the fastest workflow for me, because the only part that takes time is actually making the animation. And you don't need to get bogged down, you know, having to create all the contact sheets, you know, placing each frame by hand, dragging and dropping over and over. Photoshop just takes care of all of it for you, which is why I personally recommend Photoshop. You can use any video editing app. You can use Premiere, you can use CapCut, you can use whatever, but like Photoshop just does this like amazingly well. It works really well for animators. And so yeah, that's literally it. If you want to see any other tutorials on mixed media animation, let me know. If you have any comments, just put them in the comment section. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time that I decide to make a tutorial, because they're quite fun to make sometimes. I don't know. All right, bye-bye.